The movie opens with a heavy raining scene where a young woman, a police academy instructor, Lee Young-nam, is driving her car. Following a personal scandal, Young-nam is transferred from Seoul to take office as chief of a police substation in a quiet seaside town in Yasu. A 14-year-old girl named Doohie is seen playing with a frog beside the highway. The car being driven by Young-nam passes across her, splashing muddy water over the girl. Young-nam stops her car to apologize, but the girl gets scared and runs away. Later, Young-nam is received by her co-worker, Captain Yong, who explains to her the situation of the village while taking her to her new residence. He briefs her that the main source of the income of the place is by making the equipment for fishing and selling of seafood. On their way, they encounter an old lady named Johnson, who is riding her motorbike in the wrong lane. Yong tries to make her understand that driving in the wrong lane is dangerous, but she does not listen to him. After some time, when they stop at a traffic stop, another van carrying young boys arrives beside them. Among them, the town's main employer, an oyster farmer, Young Ha, is the only resident of the village, and all the others have arrived there in search of employment. Young Ha is the son of Johnson, so while he is trying to tease Young-nam, Yong tells him to take care of his mouth and mother. Soon, they reach her place of residence, and while taking her belongings to the room, she carries a box of water bottles very carefully. At night, she steps out to have a look at the beautiful ocean nearby. Looking around, she notices Doohie running on the road. She tries to pursue her, but fails after Doohie gets lost in the darkness. The next day, Young-nam gets dressed in her uniform and starts her way towards the office. Nearby, she witnesses a group of young students bullying Doohie. After she approaches them, the students run away. She suggests Doohie inform the police if she gets bullied again. In the next scene, we see that the locals have arranged a night party welcoming the police officers in the area. Escaping from the party, Young-nam changes her clothes and buys a lot of alcohol from a department store. She then gets in her car and starts pouring the alcohol from the bottles into her regular water bottles. Here we get to know why she was carrying the box of water bottles carefully. When Young-nam is returning to her room, she hears someone crying and screaming from a nearby house. She exits her car and rushes to the place to see a drunk Young Ha beating his daughter Doohie mercilessly. She intervenes and tries to pick up Doohie, who is lying on the floor. Young Ha tries to pull Young-nam away, but gets pinned to the ground by her instead. She then calls for backup and arrests Young Ha. Afterwards, we see Young Ha lying on a couch in the police station. Young-nam tries to make him understand that beating his daughter is illegal, but Young Ha counters by saying that he was trying to keep his daughter disciplined. She then gives him a warning and tells her co-worker to take him to his place. After Young Ha is taken away, Young explains to Young-nam that Doohie is not Young Ha's real daughter. He further adds that the whole village is very grateful to him. Young-nam returns home from work and notices Doohie standing outside of her place. She invites her inside and offers her some food to eat. She asks Doohie why her father beats her and scolds her. Doohie replies that he only does so when he is drunk. Later, when Doohie is returning to her home, she is chased by her grandmother Johnson, who is angry about her presence with Young-nam. After some chasing, Johnson catches Doohie and starts beating her. In the next scene, Young-nam is seen entering a police headquarters in Seoul for a meeting. There, it is suggested by her senior officers that she lay low for a year and take care of the surroundings. We start to understand that she is in the village as a punishment of some kind. The next day, Young-nam is jogging when she notices Doohie dancing at the dams by the ocean. Doohie is happy and just keeps on dancing like no one is looking at her. The same night, Young-nam realizes that Doohie is following her and asks her to sit on her bicycle and takes her near the shore of the ocean. Young-nam then asks her about what she is doing there in the morning. Doohie gets off the bicycle and tells her that she was doing some dance practice and then starts dancing in the middle of the road. Young-nam likes her dance and offers her a ride home. Doohie hesitates to go inside her house as her grandmother starts scolding her as soon as she enters through the gate. Young-nam returns to her room and starts drinking some alcohol. She gets a call from someone named Young John, but does not pick it up. At the same time, she hears a knock at her door. When she opens it, she finds Doohie standing outside with her eyes swollen and full of tears. Suddenly, Young-nam gets a call from her office informing her that they have found the dead body of an elderly woman near the ocean shore. She heads towards the place of the accident and finds the elderly lady to be Johnson. Young-nam then tries to question Doohie about the accident. She tells her that while she was running away from Johnson that night, Johnson chased her and later fell into the ocean. With suspicion, Young-nam asks Doohie if she has done anything, but she replies that she hasn't. Meanwhile, Young Ha arrives at the scene and starts blaming Doohie for his mother's death. However, Captain Yong tells Young Ha that his mother died due to excessive alcohol consumption and reckless driving. Later that night, it is raining heavily. Doohie again appears at the door of Young Nam. She pulls her inside and asks her to take a bath. When Young Nam tries to take off Doohie's clothes for a bath, she notices her back full of bruises. She then asks Doohie why her mother does not stop her stepfather from abusing her. Doohie replies that her mother may not return to see her, as she had left her long ago. Young Nam then tells her that she can spend the night with her. Hearing this, Doohie becomes extremely happy. The next day, Young Nam takes Doohie shopping. She buys her new clothes and also a smartphone. She then suggests she call her whenever her father abuses her. She also tells her that she has kept her number on speed dial, and if Doohie will long press 1, she will be able to call her. In case she does not receive the call, she has also placed the police number on long press 2 on the keypad. At night, when Young Nam is preparing food, Doohie wears her new clothes and starts dancing. As they are about to have dinner, Young Ha appears at their doorstep drunk and searching for Doohie. Seeing his condition, Young Nam tells him that she will keep Doohie for the entirety of her vacation, and he can take her back after he is able to keep himself under control. Before leaving, the drunk Young Ha reminds Doohie to obey the chief's orders and to be disciplined. The next day we see a visitor, Yong, approaching the police station in search of Young Nam. Seeing her, Young Nam immediately takes a leave from the office and heads back to her place. Together they enter her place, where Young is stunned to see Doohie. Young Nam introduces Doohie as her neighbor's child and tells Young that she is staying with her for a few days. After some time, Young and Young Nam head out for dinner. In the next scene, we see Young Nam and Young in a restaurant ready to have dinner. Here we get to know that Young is Young Nam's girlfriend. Meanwhile, Doohie continuously calls Young Nam, so she tells her to have some food and to go to bed without waiting up for her. Young Nam and Young have a discussion, after which Young leaves the restaurant and storms outside. Young Nam chases her and stops her at a parking spot. Both of them start crying and begin to kiss each other. Meanwhile, a strong beam of light falls on the duo. The light is from Young Ha's car, who was also in the restaurant having some food. He notices both of the girls kissing. Young Nam feels embarrassed to find Young Ha looking at them. After Young Nam enters her place, she finds everything scattered on the floor. She also notices Doohie banging her head on the wall wearing her police uniform. Young Nam tries to calm her down and asks her about why she's behaving like this. Doohie replies that now she has broken the rules, then Young Nam can punish her. Young Nam hugs her tightly, telling her that she is not angry with her. The next day, an Indian worker, Bakim, is fighting with his co-workers like a madman. Police are called to the scene, and Young Nam steps ahead to calm Bakim. After talking with him, she gets to know that he is in fact an illegal immigrant who is working under Young Ha. He wants to go back to his home as his mother is sick, but is stopped by Young Ha from doing so. Later, Young Ha is called to the police station, where Young Nam tells him to pay Bakim and allow him to return to his home. Young Ha replies that if he allows him to return, all other workers will come forward with their demands. Listening to him, Young Nam threatens him, telling him that if he does not do so, immigrant officers and police officers will be pursuing him. Enraged, Young Ha then starts threatening her back by mentioning the kissing scene with Young at the parking lot. Young Ha is then pushed out of the station by other officers. At night, Young Nam can be seen drinking heavily. As the vacations are now over, Doohie approaches her and requests her to let her stay with her. The drunk Young Nam tells her that she is not her mother and suggests she return to her home. Doohie does not want to return and sleeps the night with Young Nam hugging her on the couch. In the following scene, we see Young Nam taking Doohie to buy her new school uniform and also for a haircut. Doohie cuts her hair, the same as Young Nam. After that, Young Nam leaves her in front of her home. Young Nam then arrives at the port and inquires about Bakim. No one is willing to tell her anything about him. In the nighttime, Young Ha arrives home and starts abusing Doohie. He starts mocking her by telling her that Young Nam left her after she got her girlfriend. Doohie gets angry after hearing this and heads straight to Young Nam's house. She enters and starts scattering her belongings. Young Nam pulls and slaps her. Meanwhile, Young Ha arrives there and blames Young Nam for molesting Doohie. Young Nam gets angry at Doohie and asks what she told Young Ha about her. She then pushes Doohie outside and closes the door. In the next scene, we see a man storming into the police station and informing them about Bakim. Young Nam rushes to the scene to see a drunk Young Ha beating the life out of Bakim. Police officers arrest Young Ha and take Bakim along with them. That night, Young Nam herself visits Doohie's house and brings her together. After some time, police officers arrive at Young Nam's place and arrest her on the basis of Young Ha's complaint. Later, we can see the police questioning Young Nam and Doohie separately. Young Nam makes it clear to the investigating officer that she has no bad intention, but only cares for Doohie. She just did it to help her and keep her safe from her abusive father. The police officer then questions her if she's been transferred from her previous job location because of being homosexual. Young Nam does not answer his questions. On the other hand, Doohie tells the officers that Young Nam cares for her and loves her very much. She is then provided with a doll to mimic what Young Nam did to her. Surprisingly, Doohie puts her hand between the legs of the doll and starts massaging its private parts. With this proof, Young Nam is taken into custody and Doohie is sent home with a junior officer. On the way, the junior officer tells her that if Young Nam has done wrong with her, she will be kept in jail and her father will return home. Before leaving, the officer gives her his number and asks her to call if her father behaves improperly with her. That night, Young Ha returns to his home and drinks a lot sitting on the terrace. After he is drunk, he starts beating and cussing Doohie. Doohie bravely responds back, but gets beaten. After Young Ha is asleep, Doohie enters his room and starts removing her clothes. She unbuttons his shirt and massages his chest. At the same time, she makes a call to the junior officer and shouts as if her father is forcing himself on her. Young Ha awakes and beats her. Doohie also bangs her hands around, intending to hurt herself. Meanwhile, the police arrive and see Young Ha on top of Doohie abusing her. Doohie pretends to be unconscious and is taken out by the officers. Young Ha is arrested and taken to the police station. We then see that Young Ha is locked up in prison and Young Nam is set free. On further questioning, Doohie tells the investigators that she lied to them previously and was doing so because of the fear of her father. She tells them that her father used to abuse her regularly, and it was the reason she used to visit Young Nam. With Doohie's testimony, the police officers apologize to Young Nam. She is later called back to Seoul. Before she returns to Seoul, she visits Doohie for the last time. She asks Doohie if she faked the abuse done by her father and also about the death of her grandmother. Doohie does not answer her and just keeps on crying. Young Nam then departs and heads on her way back to Seoul. Inside the car, the junior officer tells her that Doohie has suffered a lot in her life. He mentions that her mother left her at a young age, and now she is also leaving her alone. Young Nam now can take no more and asks the officers to turn the car around. She immediately rushes to Doohie's house but can't find her there. She then runs towards the ocean shore and is relieved to find Doohie standing there. Young Nam approaches her and asks her if she would like to come with her to Seoul. Doohie starts crying with happiness and hugs Young Nam. In the last scene, it is raining, and we see Young Nam driving her car, along with Doohie asleep in another seat. They are heading to Seoul together to start their new life.